You guys remember Divinity Original Sin, right? I certainly hope you do. Took a look at the game a couple of years ago, and it was really, honestly, a Kickstarter success story, if you ask me. The return of a classic-type CRPG, with lots of depth and character interaction, and immersive experience, dialogue for basically every NPC. You can interact with, pick up, and move many things in the environment. They have this elemental combination system. There's so much to it. Such an in-depth game. And one of the things that I praised it for. Well, the game was successful. As I said, a Kickstarter success story. Not just by my measure, but the fact that, hey, they're making a sequel right now. Divinity Original Sin 2 is in development, planned for release, I believe, later this year in 2016. I think the time frame I saw was December. And they kickstarted this game as well, just like they did with the original, and it got funded. Very much so. They asked for, I think, $500,000, they got $2 million, which should tell you people liked the first game enough to dump a bunch of money into the sequel. Thumbs up, that bodes well from a consumer perspective, obviously. That's kind of the cool thing about these, I guess, fan-funded projects, is that, especially for something like this, which is a sequel, it gives you a good idea of how what people thought about the original. But anyway, yes, Divinity Original Sin 2 is happening, and one of the big changes and focuses of this sequel is the multiplayer. We had a co-op multiplayer in the first game, and you could do fun stuff and kind of screw around with them and troll them, but this has a legit competitive multiplayer mode, known as the Arena. I managed to get a little bit of hands-on time with it last year, and then most recently at PAX East, and I just want to talk with you a bit about it. You know, about what's new, what's changed, what things have they added, and then also just a bit about the combat. But first, let me tell you, because we're about to show it off here, one of the things that we've got now is this source system with these source pools. So what's going to happen is you'll walk over these pools, you'll be infused with the source, and this basically is an additional resource to fuel source abilities. Which, as you would assume, because they rely on a rare resource that's strategically placed across the map, they're more powerful than regular abilities. Now, in general, how does this game play out? Well, it's a turn-based tactics game with action points. You'll notice above the health, armor, and mana armor bars, there are these little circles, and those are your action points for the turn, determining how much you can do. Something you'll just notice that was cast was a blessing on fire. So a moment ago, fire was lobbed at this player that was standing up top here. This Red Elf Ranger was burning, and he was taking damage every turn. But the ally character put a blessing on it, which turned it into something that's good for him. Holy fire. So blessings and curses are another addition to the game that can modify the elements on the ground. Another big thing that they've added here in this multiplayer mode and to the combat is a height advantage. Essentially meaning that if you are elevated above your opponent, you get an advantage in two ways. Number one, you'll get increased range. Number two, you'll get increased damage. Now, this is going to apply, I believe, primarily to range characters. You basically want to get like your casters up top. The people who have a lot of ranged abilities. Your archers, your magic users, whatever. But either way, anything that has a range applied to it, you will get that advantage if you have that height advantage. So that's something else that they have here. There's also this magical and physical armor. So physical armor will help you absorb physical attacks. What does magical armor do? Well, magical armor determines your immunity to crowd control effects. As you go through combat and your magical armor becomes diminished, you become more susceptible to crowd control, which is going to be like sleeps and stuns and charms and things of that nature. And then I think you'll have noticed here, right, as well, there was a curse then applied. See that cursed fire, known as Necro Fire. So yes, the blessings and the curses, these various systems. There's all sorts of fun things that you can do. I think one of my favorite things that you can do with this game is the idea of picking up someone and dropping them somewhere else. It's just way too funny. They take fall damage, you could drop them on something that will harm them. I mean, it's just really a fantastic time. So here's a great look at that range advantage. Look at that increased range of this spell that's being cast out right now. Increased range and increased damage on the acid spores, although it looks like he's deciding to go with something else. Now, this, once more, this isn't my gameplay footage. This isn't what I played. I mean, I played in this arena, but this isn't the exact footage of what I played. This is just some B-roll that the developer gave to me to use for the sake of showing off the game and talking about the game. And something else that you'll have noticed back there are the curved projectiles. So now, instead of just always being in a straight line, you'll notice an arc to the projectiles. And that arc allows you to quite literally throw over things. Now, it's going to apply to certain stuff, like, for example, a regular bow will have a curve to its trajectory. Crossbows will not. They will be in a straight line. And that will apply across a variety of projectile-based skills. Some will be arced, so they can toss them over things, and some will be straight. And those are basically the major things that they talked to me about when they're talking about the changes to combat and the stuff that where they were showcasing in the multiplayer mode that I got to play. The height giving you a range and damage advantage, the source point pools, the ability to modify surfaces with blessings and curses, which we've always had the ability to modify surfaces. That was innate to this game. You could put down a puddle on the ground of water by casting a rainstorm, and then you could toss an ice spell at it, which would freeze it, and then freeze people within it. If there was an oil slick on the ground, you could put fire on it to make it explode in a poison cloud. But now there's the addition of these blessings and curses. And then there's the physical, I guess more importantly, magical armor, making you immune to CC. When that drops, you are susceptible. And then the curved paths for projectiles. Those are the big things that they wanted to talk about and focus on. In this arena, there's also things like chests, as you can see in the middle of the map here. Inside, very valuable stuff like health potions and scrolls for pretty cool abilities. There are the source pools, there are explosive barrels to worry about, all sorts of fun stuff. And there's all sorts of hecticness and craziness. And that's one of the things that I remember really liking about the first Divinity Original Sin, and I'm glad to see that they've kept it here. There's always explosions and things interacting with each other and chaining off of each other. It's nuts. It's crazy. One of the complaints that I had for the first game that still kind of holds true here is at times the camera can feel a little wonky. And that wouldn't be a big deal normally, but in a game like this that's played from this perspective, camera control is a pretty big deal. And sometimes it feels a little, I don't know, jumpy? Jittery? I think that's the word I want to use. But that complaint aside, this is more Divinity Original Sin. A sequel, if you will. And it seems like they're going in the right direction. They're keeping the complexity. I mean, look at just the skill bar. There's so many things. It's not going to be a game that's for everybody. There's a lot to figure out, a lot to get into. When you deal with the combination of all the various elements in the environment, when you deal with having to talk to so many NPCs, and reading through so much text. But for some people who like that old school style of CRPG, this series is a godsend. It's a new take on it. It's not just a remastering of an old one. This isn't Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. This is a new RPG like those of yesteryear, if you will. Alright guys, well that is going to do it. Thank you so much for joining me as we check out a little bit of the multiplayer gameplay, talk about some of the combat additions and enhancements that they've had, and then just talk about the game. I believe once again Divinity Original Sin will be coming out later this year, which I will definitely be checking out, so expect to hear some more of my opinions on this game at some point in the future. Thanks again, guys, and until next time, I'll see you later.